Hello! Welcome back to the QMS Certification channel. My name is Hart, and today we are going to talk about one of the most important information you will see in your ISO certificate, which is the scope of certification. And if you still don't follow the QMS channel here on YouTube, activate the bell to receive notifications whenever we are live and on the air. We have new and relevant content here every week to share with you. Well, as I mentioned, in addition to the basic information that will appear on your management system certificate, if your company is looking for a path to implementing ISO management system requirements, you will ultimately want to receive a certificate to show everyone, to demonstrate how your company has made an effort and achieved this great certification. And within this certificate that we call a certification document, you will see some very important information there. Your company name, the address, which addresses are often certificates that are part of it. What is the standard of management system? The description of this system then, be a quality management standard, environmental information safety, health, occupational safety. So, you will talk about what is the theme that was certified in your company and also, mainly, what was the scope, certificate or scope. According to ISO 17021, it is very clearly defined there as an objective statement. Your organization must describe the type of service, the type of product that is being certified there, which is applicable to each location and to each environment, to each process that is certified. It is very important that this scope does not generate doubts, as it cannot confuse the person who is doing the reading who is receiving this certificate. The purpose of having a certificate is precisely to give credibility to what is being certified for your company's management system. So, there can be no doubts. Ambiguity about what it is, what it was, what were the limits and applicability of that management system. The description of a management system can vary greatly depending on the type of management system you are certifying. So, when your organization is certified in more than one discipline, in more than one system, then quality, environment, health, safety, for example, you can delimit different ways, you can write in different ways the scope in a way that makes sense, the applicability of what has been audited and what has been certified according to location, according to your organization's products, processes, and activities for each of the disciplines. This is not uncommon to happen. And when we talk about integrated management systems, for example, in the ISO 37001 standards, the bribery management system, which will delimit the management system within an integrity program of an integrity compliance management system of the organization, then covering the controls of the code of conduct of all due diligence financial controls. So, the organization has a defined scope for that, and sometimes it has another management system, that is, there are integrated management 9000, 14,001 environmental, 45,001 occupational health and safety, another subject, another discipline, another certified scope. So, there you are talking about processes. Activities, for example, that are the manufacture of a raw material with metallic products, for example, from ceramic materials. Finally, you can have a scope of management system that is related to the production activities of your company's main processes. In another management system, which is more related to the administrative, compliance, and governance areas of this organization, then the limit is the applicability of this scope. It will have to be related to what you determined as relevant there, what is being looked at, what are your obligations to comply with that management system. So, when we are thinking about ISO 9001, for example, it is very important and especially interesting that you use the appropriate verbs of what this organization does. So, if your organization is a service provider, you will define its scope as providing legal support services to administrative services, business support, business management, consulting, accounting services. Clearly define what they are. What are the types of service provision? So, the verb is the provision of service itself. And then you will describe what your company's main processes are. It needs to describe all processes, support processes, procurement, HR, IT, etc. The intent of the scope is to say what your organization clearly delivers to your customer, who you are for, and who your stakeholders are. So, the support processes do not need to be described within your scope. What needs to be written is what is the purpose, the end activity of your organization. Often the question or the definition of a scope comes to us as it is in what is going on. So, all of it. Every organization has an economic activity defined within a pre-established table. So you can define, within the applicability or exclusions in your management system. You can choose to set only some key processes to be certified or some addresses. Some locations in your company will be certified and others will not. So, although the company's address is not in the scope, it will appear on the certificate, but it will not be in the scope. When you define what the tasks are, the activities, what does this organization do? You can clearly define the verbs there, the activities, the processes that are involved and covered by that certification, as they will need to be audited. So, an important point is all the processes, all the activities that you describe in your scope, they will be audited, so they will necessarily need to be part of your management system and they will need to be controlled, monitored, have a related procedure, a way to make them controlled in relation to the indicators that they collect. In short, everything else that a management system needs to have established the risks, the entire context of those areas. So you can't also include activities in the scope that this organization doesn't do or is intending to do yet. Only the activities that this organization already carries out and already has evidence of records carried out and that will be able to be audited and, consequently, certified. So, now that we have commented on what should be included in its certification scope, I believe it has become clear that the main activities and the clear and defined limits of what this organization does. Let's think about what shouldn't be. It is not recommended that it be inserted in your certification scope to create a parallel. It is even clearer how you should think. Despite being a common requirement for all standards, it is a requirement 4.3. It is part of Annex XL. Whatever management system your company is adopting, the definition of the scope is mandatory. It must be documented. It must be well described and it has to be available there as documented information. But it is not always as easy to define as we are talking here. And many times, there are elements and information inserted within the description of this scope that should not be part of the scope, simply because sometimes they are part of another part of the management system and should not be specifically written and established within the text of the certification scope. So, which one is it? What is one of these? One of these items is one of the issues that should not be contained within the scope. These are standards, regulations, or other normative references that are part of your organization's commitments. But since the certification of a management system is not the certification of legal compliance, we can't have a reference, for example, to another standard within the certified scope. Our certification as a third-party certification body for management systems and conformity assessment of management systems. We are not auditing the certification of a product or the compliance or conformity of a product of another standard, of a law. We do not have this intention and this is not the objective of the management system certification. So we are evaluating how you created a whole framework there in your organization, a whole infrastructure to ensure that a discipline, a subject, a theme is being addressed, treated, controlled, monitored, but no, never. A management system certification will be establishing there, within the scope that you are in accordance with a law or any other standard, including bribery standards, even in a bribery certification, in no other manufacture of products according to a specific law. So other normative references should not be part of the description of its scope. This is very important. This cannot pass the audit. This will not be approved, okay? And it is also very important that, as we commented earlier in the recommendation, it is important that it is clear what this organization does, what the applicability is. And then you also have to be careful when defining the scope and not let it get too vague too, okay? So, you shouldn't define the scope as, for example, construction services in general, construction of what construction, with what type of construction, what kind of care? What kind of activity are we talking about? Or provision of assembly services? What kind of assembly? What? Where does it want to get on time in an ISO certification 37000 and a compliance management system? Another precaution that's still within this issue of being too specific or too vague is to clearly define what type of compliance is, what type of limitation in this compliance that we are talking about here, so that the theme is clear. So you can talk about the management, operation of the integrity compliance system, for example, or the environmental compliance system within the scope of the manufacture of X products. So, these recommendations about what should not be and what should be are also important to be clear. It is one of our important issues. And then we sometimes bump into it. Often that scope statement must be objective. It cannot have inferences, it cannot bring statements that cannot be audited or are not editable. So, the organization cannot use its certification document or its certificate there on the wall with an advertising item. So, the scope should also not say manufacturer of the best and cheapest product in such and such a line. You can't talk about the manufacture of a product, or a shampoo with very high quality and/or adjectives. The best in the world, the best price, the cheapest and the highest quality. Those are specifications and they are. These are approaches that can be used in your business communications. However, in the scope of certification this is not applicable, it is not appropriate. So, it is important that the definition of the scope has to be objective, it has to bring very clear, well-defined references in what this organization does. What are the limits, in what areas? What is the scope of this and where did you adhere to the adopted your obligations, the risks, the processes that are related? So, it has to be clear to those who are reading, there can be no ambiguity about what this organization does and what has been certified. Well, I hope that these guidelines have helped you to better define the scope of your certification of your management system or your integrated management systems. You can explore this a little better according to the theme. See you next time.